Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday Lives, our casual weekly chat about everything like streaming. We're talking to content creators from different backgrounds here, and this show is powered by Restream Studio. If you would like to know how to run your own live show with guests, you can actually check it out here at restream.io/studio. And you can run your own show super easy, no special equipment needed, and no special software, just directly from your browser. And you can even invite guests to the shows. And speaking of guests, my guest today is Ian Anderson Gray. He is international keynote speaker, live video and social media expert, and the host of the Confident Live Marketing podcast. Hey, Ian. Welcome to the show.
How are you doing? Great to be here.
Absolutely. How are you today?
Yes, I'm doing good. I almost had Zoom fatigue. I don't know, that's become a thing when you kind of sat in front of Zoom for too many meetings, but I've survived and I'm very excited to be on the show.
That's awesome. Well, good thing we're not in Zoom, right? So that's helpful.
Exactly. That's definitely good.
Completely different experience. Well, we're going to go ahead and start with a quick introduction. I know I did a little spiel and introduced you just, generic information about your podcast, about your expertise in live streaming. But would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about what you do?
Yeah. Where do you start? I suppose the simple thing from a business point of view, I work with entrepreneurs and businesses to level up their impact, authority, and profits using the power of confident live video. And I think the key word there is confidence, because people, businesses, entrepreneurs struggle with usually one of three things when it comes to live video. It's either the confidence and the mindset to get in front of the camera. It is either the tech or the gear, or finally, it's the content and the marketing. What on earth do you say on these live shows? So I help businesses with coaching, consultancy, and finding the best tools and gear for them. And my background as a professional singer has really combined well with my love of technology and being a bit of a geek. So I enjoy working with companies that way.
Awesome. We will definitely get back to the professional singer piece of that. Just here, right here, we can see the website where you can learn more about Ian. It's iag.me. So please check out his work. There's so much there about his speaking as a keynote, about his podcast, and about multiple other courses that he created for live streaming and like teaching people how to use different software and how to, of course, be confident. There's also a section of services where you can actually learn from Ian to be confident on video. And that is something that we're going to definitely talk about a lot today. So I guess let's start with a very simple question. I would say probably the most of your audience are entrepreneurs and business owners. So why do entrepreneurs need live video? Why do you think they could leverage that tool, and how?
Well, it's all down to trust, and with so many services and business owners to choose from. For example, if I want to find somebody who's great with Facebook ads, and I need some help with Facebook ads, where do I start? I can look around and find lots of people who are experts at that. But I want to find somebody that I trust and someone who's enjoyable to work with. So what I've found is that if I find somebody who comes on live regularly, is being themselves, is being authentic and being real, I'm much more likely to buy from them, because I feel I can get to know them. And with live video, you can not only share your expertise and your knowledge, you can build that trust and you can build that human connection. And so it's such a powerful way to generate really powerful leads and get business that way. But then the other thing is, and this is one of the things that I absolutely love, is that creating content takes a huge amount of time. I probably spend weeks producing blog posts, and I totally see the power of blog posts. But when you go live, yes, you need to do that planning, but it's very easy once you've done that. You just press the go live button, you produce your content, and you've then got a piece of content that you can repurpose into blog posts, into podcasts, and it's just a quicker and more powerful way, I think, to create content too. So those are maybe just two reasons. There's loads of other reasons why I think entrepreneurs should look at live video, but I think it's easy to create content from it, and it's also a great way of building that trust and growing your audience as well.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, there's nothing more powerful than interactive relationship building when you are actually doing that from the comfort of your studio. I mean, arguably live streaming is comfortable, maybe not comfortable. We'll definitely talk about that as well. But it is an amplifier, right? Because you can reach so many people and you can make them feel that they are part of the conversation, part of the discussion, which is something we are going to do today with this conversation as well. Everyone in the chat, by the way, welcome. I see a lot of people coming in and starting to message. Feel free to send your questions and comments for Ian and for us, primarily for Ian since he's our guest today, about everything we're talking about. And I'll be happy to take those questions in about 30 minutes from now, and we will answer as many as possible because we would love for you to participate. That's the whole point of this. Aside from entrepreneurs, who else do you typically see who could benefit from live video and who is usually coming to you and asking questions about how to get started and how to excel in live streaming?
Well, it's if you've got a business. So I've worked with we call them estate agents in the UK. I think real estate agents, and so there's one in our village, and he's been utilizing live video as a way to show the human side of the business himself. He's the owner of the business. He's been able to show people around houses, so actually give a virtual tour live, and people can ask questions and things and do interviews. So any kind of business owner, you could be a restaurant owner. Why not do a live from the kitchen? And I mean, obviously at the moment with the lockdown that might be tricky, but certainly in the UK at the moment, restaurants are starting to open for the first time on Saturday, and that might be a great way to show what's happening. So it could be, there's lots and lots of different ways. You could be, for example, I teach singing at a music college, and so you could actually give virtual concerts, performances that way. There's so many different ways you could use live video depending on what it is that you do. You don't have to be a business owner. You could be a gamer. You could be an educator. You could be a teacher. There's so much I could go on about, but definitely there's some of those things there are some ways of utilizing live video.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely seeing quite a spike in musicians, especially considering the pandemic situation. Now, when a lot of musical venues are not available or accessible for people, this is the best way for musicians to stay connected with their communities and continue creating and doing that in that live and interactive form. So we're going to talk a little bit about your past, your experiences, and certain things that you wrote and published that were interesting.
That sounds really ominous. It sounds like I did something really bad, and you're going to kind of like tell everyone about my dirty secrets.
It is going to be a little bit of an interesting take, I would say. So we're going to talk about your popular article. One of your first articles that you on your own website, you mentioned that this is basically the start of your popularity and the kickstart of your career as a social media expert, was that article that you wrote that was called 7 Reasons Not to Use Hootsuite. So basically, we're breaking down the super popular software that is dominating the market these days and basically pointing out the things that are wrong about it. So you can definitely elaborate on that a little bit if you want. But the question I had for you was, are there any reasons not to live stream? And have you ever in your career talked somebody out of that?
Well, it's a really good question. I think actually we should all be asking that question. You might be really passionate about live streaming, but I think you also need to think, well, you can ask it 2 ways. So why should I be doing live streaming? Because I think you've got to know deep down what the reasons are. But let's just go back to that article that you talked about. So this was back in 2011, and I would love to say that I came up with the idea of launching a new business and a blog, and I had it all sorted out. But no, after years of procrastination, I decided to start blogging, and social media was becoming a bit more of a thing back in those days. And so I was dabbling with some technology, and I came across Hootsuite, really liked it. But there was a few frustrations I had about it. So I thought, well, why not write an article about the things that I'm finding frustrating about it? I actually really liked the tool. So, but I had some frustrations with it. And so I wrote an article which was quite detailed, looking at the positives, but also looking at what the bits that I didn't like about it. And I was just really surprised because it just really became very popular and I suppose almost viral. And I found out later that I became known within Hootsuite, and an ex-employee told me about this. And they didn't hate me, but they were kind of always a little bit surprised at how popular that article was. And I think the reason it was popular was because a lot of people were talking about the positives all the time. And I was just saying, well, yeah, it's a great tool, but here are some of the things that aren't so good about it. And what I found was that a lot of people read that article and they thought, oh, okay, those are the only reasons why Hootsuite, those are the only negative reasons. Well, I'm going to sign up for Hootsuite because it sounds like a really great tool. And I found that actually I got quite a lot of affiliate links from that. I never intended particularly to make any money from the blog, but that was my eyes were open from that. So following on to your main question, which is why, why should we not live stream? I think it's a great question we should be answering ourselves and asking ourselves. And I think you need to think really, well, what's the reason for this? Why am I doing this? Is it because I just want to do it? I just want to have a bit of fun. That's not necessarily a bad reason, but I think from a business point of view, you need to have a better reason than that. And it may be that actually you're really struggling on camera. You might stutter over words, or you might not be very, very confident. And so that might be a reason not to do it. And there may be other things. You may not have a particularly good message. You may have lots of things that you're struggling with and you haven't quite got to grips with. So those might be reasons why you shouldn't do it. But I would probably answer most of them with actually, with work and with practice, you probably can do a really good job, because when we all do live video to begin with, maybe you're the exception to this, but when most people do their first live videos, they're not that great. But the good thing is, the more you do, the more confident you become, and it's usually an upwards trajectory. So, the only way to get better is by starting, and that might be only on maybe on your Facebook profile or in a private group. But over time, you could add more channels to that. And obviously, one of the great things with Restream Studio is you don't have to do this at the beginning. Maybe I probably would recommend against multi-streaming at the start. Just start really small. But over time, as your confidence increases, you can start to add more channels and get more confident. So I don't know whether that answers your question. I think it's a great question to ask. Maybe some people, I struggle really to find situations where it's not a good idea to live stream. But I think some people will need to do more practice. Some people will find it very, very easy to go live. Some people will find it more difficult. But I think we can all get better if we practice.
Awesome. No, I think it makes perfect sense. And yeah, we'll definitely touch base on confidence and how to build it on top of what you were born with later on. But first, let's travel in time to your own very first live stream. I would really love to hear, you just mentioned your first live stream is typically a disaster in some shape or form. Like, how did that look? What was that about? And can you walk us through that experience?
Well, yeah. So this might come as a surprise to you, but in a way, I was very much a kind of a reluctant live streamer. I got into live streaming when Facebook Live became a thing back in 2016. It was, it seemed like all my friends, like I had a lot of friends in the US who were marketers as well, and they all seemed to have access on their iPhones. Well, I was in the UK and I was an Android user, so I seemed to be the last person to have it. And then I discovered a tool called OBS Studio that allowed us to broadcast to Facebook Live from our computer. But it was really difficult to use, so I started to look into the technology. One of my passions is to try and make things that are difficult easy to understand. So I wrote an article, but I then realized, well, in order to write an article about this, I'm going to have to actually go live. And if you consider, like 2 years before this, somebody invited me onto their show on Google Hangouts on Air. I don't know if everyone remembers that, and I was absolutely petrified. I was so scared about going on the show. So the idea of me going live on Facebook Live was scary, but I did it. And I think I found it easier because I was messing around with the technology. So it didn't need to be that amazing. If things went wrong, people would understand. But yes, so the first few videos that I did weren't great. I did lots of other live videos where I forgot to switch the microphone on. The internet went down. I had a guest on, nobody could hear them. I could tell you a lot of mistakes that I made. But the great thing is, once I made those mistakes, I didn't make them again because I wrote them down and I made sure that I added them to my checklist. So I always would check my microphone. I'd have a backup plan if the internet went down. And so actually I say to my clients today, if you're not making mistakes, that you're not learning. It's actually good to have those mistakes so that you can get better and learn from the experience. It's not what people want to hear, but actually making the mistakes is a good thing as long as you learn from them.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely brilliant, and I agree 100%. The things that you learned from your own mistakes, they just stick. You know, like you will never make that mistake again because you have that terrible experience of that microphone not working. You mentioned not turning on your microphone. There is the opposite variation of that when you don't turn off your microphone when you when you think it's off. So that opens another Pandora box of different things.
That's happened to me. I mean, I thought, well, actually, it wasn't so much that is I forgot to press the end broadcast button. So we kept on broadcast. And I don't think we said anything too bad. But this happened to a client of mine when she forgot to switch it off and she was eating we say crisps in the UK, potato chips, and she was just eating her lunch. Well, and she started to get some comments through saying, "Oh, what are you eating?" And she's like, "How do you know?" So, or maybe another client of mine, her background, she had a kind of like a board behind it, and it fell on her halfway through. Or and then a cleaner came in to change to start cleaning the room, and there's loads of stories. But I think those kinds of things. So there's the tech problems. I think the tech problems you can learn from, and you can improve that. The things where the cat jumps on the table and knocks over your webcam or the background falls down, those show the human side of you. And so actually, you probably don't want to do it again. But actually, it's those bits that probably get more views and have a bit of, can actually create a bit of fun. So I would embrace those. And actually, I would actually say to if that ever happens to people, I dare you to actually take those bits out and put it into an outtakes video. So for repurposing for later, because actually that's a great way to get more people watching a show, because people love when things go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so funny. You already answered that question, but I usually like to ask people, what is your reaction to when things go wrong? Like, because there are typically about 3 kinds of reactions that I've heard of. One is you just freak out and you just get so scared and stressed out that things are going wrong. Very natural, very human, very typical, but probably not ideal for camera. Then there is kind of like a poker face reaction, something that I tend to default to. If the cat jumped on my table or, the cleaning crew showed up and started cleaning here, I would just be like, doesn't exist for me. I keep going. Like, this is not real. And then there's obviously humor, which is, I like to think I'm funny, but I'm probably not. So, but if you can, in a clever and funny way, to kind of play with the situation, I think that is the best. I definitely enjoy when people just kind of like make fun of the situation. Like, okay, this happened. Let's have a good laugh about it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, totally. One of your segments that you use quite a bit on some of your keynote presentations and speaking engagements is how not to look like an idiot on video. I think this is a brilliant way to put it. And I would love to ask you, well, I guess, first of all, describe looking like an idiot on video. What does that constitute? And how do you not look like an idiot when you live stream?
Yeah, so this comes down to mindset. I think not all of us are like this. I do know a few people that just love live so much they go on and they don't feel like an idiot. They feel amazing. But I think most of us aren't like that. Most of us are concerned about the way we look. We're worried about the way we look, the way we sound. We may suffer from one of these, what I call live video syndromes, like looking like an idiot syndrome, imposter syndrome. Maybe we feel that we're an introvert and we struggle with that and in terms of getting in front of the camera. I'm an introvert, but I think sometimes we can use that as an excuse. So maybe we're comparing ourselves with others. So this is a big problem. This has been a big problem for me. I look at other live video people and I think, oh, well, I could never do it as well as them. And of course, what we tend to be doing there is comparing our first video with their 100th video. Of course, we're at a different stage. So I think we need to start working on it's a popular term, our mindset. We need to start thinking about what's going on up here in our brains and what is stopping us. And a lot of the time, it comes from the fact that we're probably overly obsessed with our thoughts, and we're actually being selfish in a way. We're forgetting that actually it's not about us; it's about our audience. We've got people who are going to be watching us. We've got lovely people commenting and chatting, and we're actually worried about how we look and how we sound, and they don't care. That what they're interested in is just seeing you, and they're interested in your expertise. So I think you need to work on that. But there's a few practical ways that you can do to help here. First of all, don't go live straight away. There are other things. For example, Instagram stories is a great way to build your confidence because they're not live. They're just 10, 15 seconds long. They only last for 24 hours. So what's the worst that's going to happen? So you can practice this every day. Say, commit to sharing a couple of Instagram stories every day for the next 2 weeks. And that's going to build that consistency. You're going to start getting used to yourself. The second thing is, don't think about yourself. Think about what the value you're giving to your audience. Try not to think about it as yourself. Try not to make obsessed over the technology. This has been an issue for me in the past. I've been thinking, well, I need to get my microphone perfect. I need to get my background perfect. And then I never go live because I'm worried about all of those things. So, and then the final thing is, don't take yourself too seriously. Actually, I mean, at the moment, my hair is a complete mess. I've got, COVID-19 hair, and I can't tell you how excited I am about getting my hair cut on Tuesday. Now, in the past, I probably would have not gone live because I'm just really embarrassed by my hair. But I've come to terms with the fact that people aren't that interested in my hair. They're more interested in what I have to say and everything else. So you have to get over yourself, basically. And then the final thing, which you can probably talk about later, is actually building on is actually getting your body and your voice more confident. So there are warm-up techniques that you can do just to get yourself in the zone before you press that go live button, and then you're not even thinking about yourself.
You just burst my bubble because my haircut happened last week, and I thought that this is dramatically increasing the success of Friday Lives. But apparently, this is not what people are here for. I totally hear you. I think those are great points and insights and great advice. So yeah, definitely, there's so many things to worry about, and there's so many things not to worry about. And the best thing to start is just to actually go and do it. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about confidence. I think this is kind of your theme of your teaching, so to say, and your expertise. One question I was very curious about, and I wanted to ask you is, do you believe that confidence is something that you are naturally born with? Is this one of those talents that you either have or not? Or is it something you can exercise, or a combination of two?
It's definitely a combination. So there are a number of things that we've all got different personalities, and we've all got different personality traits. So I mentioned some people are introverts, some people are extroverts, some people are ambiverts. It's a sliding scale. Some people are shy, and shy is different from being an introvert. You can actually be a shy extrovert. So when it comes to confidence, and I think some people are really confident. They get in front of the camera and they love that. They get their energy from that. Some people actually find it really difficult to get in front of the camera, but they can get better and they can improve over that. And there's different techniques that they need to employ to get better at that. And actually, interestingly, I don't know what your view on this is, Anya, but I actually find that the people who have had to work at their confidence, I find them more engaging than the people who are just like so they're just so enthusiastic, because sometimes that can almost seem in some people a little bit false. I'm not really seeing the real person, whereas the person who's had to work at it is maybe showing a little bit more human side to it and authenticity. And I personally prefer that. I would prefer that than somebody who's got so much energy but I'm not really seeing the human side of it. So yeah, the short answer to your question is some people have more confidence than others and find it easier than others. But if you really struggle with that, there is things that you can do to improve that. And I'm a case in point. Yes, I trained as a professional singer, but I was quite a shy person when I was growing up. And I really struggled with confidence. I've struggled with comparing myself to others. I'm going to be totally honest here. I've struggled with all of these things, but I've worked at it. And I still wouldn't say I find it, I still always have to get my energy levels going. I have to ramp myself up before I press that go live button. But I certainly find it a lot easier now the more I've done. So I don't want to encourage people who may be struggling to press that go live button, or maybe they've had some disasters and they feel a complete idiot and they're worried about pressing that button again. Don't give up, because there are actually people out there that want to hear the message that you have to give with your personality. You don't have to be the same as other people. You don't have to be like me. You don't have to be like Anya. You just need to be you. There are things we can do to ramp up your energy whilst being yourself. I call that heightened authenticity, and that's maybe something we can talk about. But there is definitely a light at the end of the tunnel, and you can do it.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about it, because it's really hard to believe that you are still struggling with going live, right? The teacher of confident marketing is still kind of overcoming some confidence issues. So yeah, I would love for you to share a little more about that, and maybe share specific things that helped you to gain that confidence, since you were on that path from the very beginning yourself.
Well, I think it's important for me to be honest about it, because so many people aren't, and actually they are struggling. I talk with a lot of live streamers, and then you look at them and think they have no problem at all. They are so confident, and then you start to speak with them, and you start to think, yeah, they are struggling. They're comparing themselves to others. They're having to deal with a few things, and we're all human. So let's be real at the end of the day. And because I teach people, I think actually a bit of empathy and a bit of reality is so important with that. So that's why I share those things. So what was the question you were talking about in terms of how people can learn or improve their confidence? What was the question? Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So the question was, what was the specific tips that helped you?
Yeah.
Like since you were going through that process yourself, like what were the key things that helped you to boost your confidence, that you would like to share with others who are struggling with the same thing?
Well, so for me, there was a real business need, and I knew that live streaming was something that I needed to do. So in a way, that was that impetus to actually doing it. And I think before the lockdown, a lot of people were thinking, yes, I need to do live streaming, but I'll do it tomorrow. Now that the lockdown has happened in many countries, people have actually been forced into it. So you need to have something or somebody kind of pushing you in a nice way into it. So I think we need to have some cheerleaders around us. People, it could be, for example, one of the things that's really been helpful to me is being in a mastermind group. So this is with other business owners who are encouraging you, but also having a bit of holding you to account, being accountable. So if you know you need to go live, you need to have people around you that you tell that you share your progress, and you're saying to them, well, I need to go live next Monday, and they are going to be checking up on you that you actually have gone live next Monday. So that having accountability has been really vital to me, because I think having other people that you don't want to let down. Sometimes it's easier to let yourself down, but much more difficult to let others down. And so that's how that kind of works, how that thinking works. The other thing is working on some of those mindset issues. So then actually, this is almost getting into the realms of psychology. We're asking, well, why am I worried about the way I look? Or why am I comparing myself to others? And start to work on those things, work on the mindset, and start to think, to actually write down. So this is more kind of getting into the whole affirmation thing. So we tend to believe the negative things about ourselves and not the positive things. So I started to kind of think, well, I was worried about looking like an idiot, but then actually when I thought about it, well, I don't look like an idiot. There's a lot of things about me that are really positive. So I started to look at the more positive things about myself and believe those things, as opposed to those negative thoughts that tend to go around in our heads. So there's a lot of mindset things that you need to do. But do you know what? Really, the main thing that has helped is just doing it. And the first few that I did, and I have had some disasters, has been really, really difficult. I found that really difficult. Having guests, bringing on other people, makes it so much easier than doing a solo show. So, and then this is one of the great things about using. Yeah, using Restream Studio is great, because it's very, very easy just to bring in a guest. And then you don't feel like you're on your own. You're just having a chat with a friend. and that makes it a lot easier. So having guests on the show at the start before you start to do those solo shows makes it easier. Having said that, I didn't do that because back in the day, I was using software that made it very difficult to bring in guests. And so I actually found it almost easier to try and do it a solo show. But then it's very strange talking to yourself. It feels like you're talking to yourself. So
yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. You totally unpacked my secret. For me, it was difficult to start because I've been with Restream for many years before I started this show. But to stream solo seemed very unnatural to me because I was like, well, what am I going to say? Am I that interesting? Are people going to show up? And of course, when you bring in guests like experts and you have, first of all, this natural flow of conversation, it is very easy to build the content around. And also, you don't feel that alone and that scared. Like even if nobody shows up, at least you have that guest that you can have a chat with. So that's definitely That's great advice. Speaking of that mindset and stuff, I have an interesting question that might be interesting for our international community here. And it also comes from my personal experience. So people with English as a second language, checking in right here, myself, right, often hesitate to start streaming because they're worried about their accent, that the grammar is not right, they mess up the words, the sounds, pronunciation, all that good stuff. Do you think it should be a concern? And if, how would you recommend those people address that?
Well, it's obviously I haven't got personal experience with this because English is my first language, but I have worked with clients for which English is their second or even third language. And it is obviously going to be a concern. There are some people who will be totally confident with the grammar and the pronunciation, but it's always going to be in the back of their mind. It's going to be a negative thing. Maybe they have had people who have picked up on their accent before, and so they feel really sensitive about this, and they're worried that maybe somebody on the live stream is going to say something really negative about their accent. But honestly, although those feelings, I'm not trying to kind of push those feelings away. They are going to be really strong, but you need to try and push those to one side and focus primarily on your message and the value that you're giving, because that's why people are going to tune into your live. That's the most important thing. And if there are going to be some annoying people out there who come in and say something that's negative about your accent or they can't understand you, you have to kind of distance yourself. Live video is strange because it becomes very much more personal. You can feel more judged, but you need to try and not to do that. And if somebody is going on there and saying anything really very negative, and to be honest, I hardly ever see people do that. There are some really kind of weird people out there, and you might get a few people, but most people are really kind and they just want to hear from you. So try to put that to one side and don't worry about that. There may be things that you can do. So if your accent is really, really strong and people are struggling, then speaking more slowly, working on your diction, and actually some of the exercises that I give can really help with that. So I've got what I call the Confident Live warm-up formula. And one of the exercises in that is to do with diction. So to really kind of get the consonants in your words really strong and to work with the pitch in your voice. So actually working on those kinds of things, whether your first language is English or not, doesn't matter. Those kind of exercises will help. So the answer to your question is, I think there's a technical answer, so you can work on it. But it's mainly a mindset thing, and you should not let anyone get in the way of you connecting with your audience. Don't give any more excuses for you to not press that go live button, because you'll be, if it's not your accent, there'll be lots of other things you'll come up with, I'm sure.
Absolutely. No, I think it's great stuff. That there are two ways how to change how to basically tackle any situation, any problem, right? You either change the situation so you can go through correction procedures, you can improve your accent, you can actually hire a speech therapist who can help you remove it completely if that's your goal. I mean, that is available today. Or you can change your attitude, right? And you can say, hey, I have my accent. I've been living in the United States for 10 years and I kept it because I was like, well, you know what? This is a special thing about me that makes me different. Yes, and that's the conversation starter. People ask me where I'm from and how long I've been here and like what's different between my home country and the United States. So I embrace it and I own it. And if you're comfortable with that, that's a path too. If not, there is a way to definitely change that. So
I love that. That's so important. Actually, you reminded me, because one thing I work a lot with US clients, and I find, I think this is just the way I am, but I'm very good at picking up accents. So I moved up to Scotland. My parents are actually from Scotland originally, and as a teenager, and I ended up having a Scottish accent after 2 years. And then I moved down to England with a Scottish accent, and then I gained an English accent. And I find that working with a lot of US clients, I get really confused with how you pronounce things. So we say schedule a lot of people say schedule in the UK, but I've ended up, I quite often will say schedule now. And there are other words that I end up becoming American. And I've tried not to do that, because I think it's important to embrace who I am. You know, I've lived in the UK all my life. I am British, so it is who I am. And so I think if I start to change my pronunciation to more of an American way, you know, as long as people understand what I'm saying, you know, that's the main thing.
Absolutely. All right, let's take some questions. They piled up, so this is really exciting. We're gonna take them sort of chronologically. So we'll start with this one. Richard from YouTube is asking, "Can you teach confidence in speaking?" I want to say the answer is yes, and I was about to throw your little link on there, but I'll let you do that to make sure that this is also part of your course. So I guess the question is not only about live streaming, but just in speaking, in public speaking in real life.
Yeah.
Is that something you teach at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So so it depends on what you mean by speaking. So there's different. So the answer is yes, absolutely.
Public speaking, probably.
Public speaking. So there's a difference between speaking at an in-person live event, which I know not many live events are happening at the moment, and speaking in front of the camera like I'm doing now. And I used to find speaking at a live event much easier. I would far prefer to speak in front of 500 people at an event, or even 1,000 people. I'd probably feel less nervous than going live live in front of a camera, because you tend to get the energy from the room. You can bounce off the energy of the room. Whereas at the moment, I'm in my office, I'm the only person here, and I'm speaking to a camera. Yes, I can see you, Anya, but I can't see the live viewers, and it felt very, very strange. And so there's a different way of tackling confidence of speaking in front of the camera. The camera's a bit of an energy sucking device, and we need to work on that compared to speaking in front of a live audience. But the answer is you can do both. You can gain confidence in speaking in both ways.
Awesome. Yeah, great stuff. We have Samantha here from Facebook. How can I record to repurpose content? She's asking about using Restream, but I think this is a very nice kind of door into one of the questions that I wanted to talk to you about repurposing content in general. So why don't we talk about that, because this is something that you recommend quite often, repurpose your content. So why don't you share how you do that, and then I'll mention very briefly how you can do that specifically with Restream.
Yeah, so absolutely. I always like to keep a copy of all the videos that I do, all the live streams that I do, because then it makes it very easy to then just put it in a video editor, and I can just edit out little snippets to then share on, for example, IGTV, if you're on Instagram, or Instagram stories, Facebook, Twitter, little snippets. And then there's some other really cool things that you can do. You can send that little 2-minute video off to a company such as rev.com. They will give you captions to add onto that, or using a tool like Headliner. So headliner.app is great. You can put in the video, the little snippet, and they will transcribe it for you. And you can have captions and then just share that on Twitter and things like that. So the way you could do that, the way I do it technically is it really depends on the tool that you use. So if you're broadcasting to YouTube, for example, actually you can download. YouTube is pretty good in terms of the quality that you can download for later. So that's one thing. Facebook's not so good. So if you're just broadcasting to Facebook and you download the video from Facebook, the quality, the resolution's not that great. Or if you're using a third-party tool, such as OBS or Ecamm Live, those tools allow you to record the video at the same time as streaming. And I believe, so you'll be able to tell me with Studio, I think the facility to record is coming.
Yeah, it's coming very soon. So to add on to Samantha's question, so there are two things how you can record and repurpose. One, exactly like you mentioned, Ian, you can take it from YouTube, which is what we do when we repurpose these shows into a podcast, and also little snippets, just like you mentioned earlier. We do little clips for very interesting question and really cool answer from our guests. And also, we are bringing in the opportunity to record your stream in the studio and basically download it and then repurpose, re-add it, however you want to treat it. There's also a tool that we have, speaking of how to pronounce the word schedule, the tool called Scheduler. So you could potentially pre-record your video and then push it live to all social platforms that Restream is integrated with. So basically, a pre-recorded video will appear as a live video. It's a little tool that we have for those who are not super keen on interactive piece and chatting and bringing in the community into the conversation. But if you just want to record something in advance and then make it live, take advantage of live video with a perfect edited and polished piece of content, there is a tool for that as well. But for repurposing specifically, and of course, pre-recorded video can be repurposed again and again after being scheduled as live. But yeah, for stuff that you stream live, download it, remove the video, make it a podcast, make little clips for social media posts. That's all great stuff. That's definitely how we do that. And it's been very engaging. Awesome. So Twitter question from Hongo. In order to grow my community, is it better to live stream at YouTube or is it better to upload a show? So I guess the very classic question of what is better, live or pre-recorded?
Well, you probably know the answer to this. It's going to be both. So I think
right.
in most circumstances, I think you need to do both. And so at the moment, YouTube has just been. Unfortunately, my YouTube channel was kind of like bottom of the pile. I knew it was something I really wanted to invest in, but I was investing in all these other areas of my business. For now, it's definitely going to be my focus for this year and the next year. And so I go live every week for my live show to YouTube, which is great. But I also, you see, the thing is with those, they're 45 minutes to an hour long, and they are absolutely great at building that community and getting the watch time of my videos up. But not everyone is going to have the time to watch a whole 45-minute to an hour video. I mean, it depends on how long your live streams are. Some people will want, just quick explainer videos or, so shorter videos. So I think you need to kind of look at both, ideally. If you've got the bandwidth for that, look at a live stream, do that every week or every 2 weeks. But then if you can, just do a pre-recorded video, which is between, say, 3 or 4 minutes up to 10 minutes long. That's a great way to grow your YouTube channel, to do a mixture of the two.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Question from Alexander from Facebook. How to prevent stupid situations during live show? We kind of talked about how to react to stupid situations and how to make peace with that. Is there any advice on how to prevent those from happening altogether?
I'd love to know what kind of... I'd love to know what stupid situations you had in mind, really, because I think we've all had those stupid situations, and I think you just have to kind of like embrace them. There's certain things that you can do. So obviously we talked about having a checklist from a tech point of view, making sure you have a checklist so that everything is working as much as possible from a tech point of view. Having said that, it was a couple of months ago, I had a guest on the show. The first week she came on, there was a power cut in my village. So there wasn't much. So anyway, the following week she came on, and then the internet went down across the whole of the UK for this ISP that I'm with. So these things can happen. And that was a stupid situation in a way from a tech point of view, but there wasn't much I could do about it. In terms of like, if you're stumbling over your words, what I find is when you press that go live button, I don't know about you, but for a lot of people, their brain goes to mush. They almost forget the first thing that they're going to say. So what I tend to do is I have a document in front of me, and I have the first couple of sentences of what I need to say, which is usually welcome to the show. Thank you so much for watching the replay. I always address my replay audience first because they're the people in the future who will probably have joined the show first. And And then I also mention who I am. Now, I know that sounds silly, but why would I forget my own name? But I don't trust myself. This is when I do treat myself like an idiot, because when you press that go live button, is something happens to our brains. And so I think you have to just make sure that everything's listed in a document in front of you. So document the show. Don't read from a script, apart from maybe the first couple of sentences, but structure it so that you're not allowing your brain to go to mush, like that can sometimes happen. So I hope that helps. But if something silly does happen, then just embrace it, just joke, just have a laugh about it, and just get on with it.
Yeah, basically, react to it naturally versus trying to prevent everything, because you can never do that. You can never prevent every stupid situation. Speaking of reintroducing, let me reintroduce you here for those who are just joining us right now. My guest today is Ian Anderson Gray. He's international keynote speaker, live video and social media expert, and the host of the Confident Live Marketing podcast. He teaches people how to leverage the power of live video for entrepreneurs, and also helps you to become more confident when you're speaking, whether it's live or on camera. And a couple more questions from the community. I thought this was very interesting. Have you noticed a sea change lately in terms of people's opinion about video calls? If so, why, and what took them so long? So it's a little bit of a coronavirus question / our new reality. Do you see that? Do you agree with that opinion that people treat video calls completely different these days versus just even like 4 or 6 months ago? And how do you what do you make out of that change? Like, what do you think about it?
Well, totally. I think I mentioned this a little bit before, that there's a lot of people that saw the power of live video and video in general, but they were just saying, well, I'll deal with that tomorrow. But then the lockdown happened, and everyone has to embrace video, whether you like it or not. And actually, I've been on a lot of Zoom calls where people have just had to embrace it. They've had to jump in the deep end, and so that's been great. I mean, it's a great way for people to see this as a new technology. And I think, a lot of people are talking, well, what's going to happen when we go back to normal? I actually think we're going, like a lot of people are saying, we're going to go back, or we're not going to go back. We're going to go to a new normal, where a lot of people will be working in a hybrid situation, where they'll be doing meetings, not just in person, but actually remotely from home. We're going to have a lot more of that. So there's definitely been a sea change. A lot of people have had to embrace live video, whether they like it or not, and have ended up finding that they really love it. And have had to learn to do it. And so that's a really encouraging thing. What is happening, though, is that the bar, so this, I don't mean this to be discouraging, but the bar now is having to lift higher. So as a lot of conferences around the world have had to either been cancelled or have had to go online and become virtual, the days of just sharing your PowerPoint presentations and speaking with a very boring voice on one tone like this are over. Because we are moving to everything being virtual, we all need to become more confident in front of the camera. We all need to kind of raise the energy levels. We need to become more professional. So it's great that we're all embracing this technology, but we shouldn't just sit back on our laurels. We should now try and think, well, what can I do to level things up, to create that more engagement and more excitement on video?
Awesome. All right. So there are some questions that are very specific to Restream in the chat as well, like about Restream and Instagram and Restream and Facebook. I will go back to those comments and actually respond to them up to the show. Just want to make sure we have some time to ask Ian some other cool questions that I had in mind that I think everyone would benefit from. So moving on with our questions. So there is, like you mentioned, kind of following up from the question that we just talked about, there's a lot of noise on social media right now, right? It's very difficult to stand out in this ocean of streams and conference calls and webinars and whatnot, right? What are your top tips to people who are trying to stand out? How can you do that these days?
It's really tough. I saw somebody posting the other day. Do you remember the days when you would get like a 50% reach on Facebook? When you posted something on Facebook and, like over 50% of your fans saw it? Well, like those days are over. But it is possible to stand out. And so there are different ways of doing this. First one is kind of what we were talking about earlier, which is embrace who you are. So if you like talking about, if you have an accent, actually embrace your accent, like you were saying. It's what makes you you. If you have a bad hairdo, embrace that. If you whatever, just be you, because there's nobody else out there quite like you. So actually the competition is far less. So I don't want to become a carbon copy. I don't want to be a clone of other people out there in my industry, because I'm looking for people who are fans of me. And so you need to be just embracing who you are. Don't try and be a boring carbon copy, because you're never going to do as good a job of being somebody else as they are for being themselves. So that's the first thing. Second thing is to really focus on that valuable content. So make sure that there's lots of value that you're sharing, but also that you are being real and empathetic. So I really believe in that. I was sharing earlier about my struggles, and I don't want to just come on camera and saying my life is perfect. And I find live video easy, because that's going to make all my audience feel really bad and think that, well, I can never learn. So actually sharing a bit of those negative stories is really important. Third thing is just raising the bar professionally. So you can now use, it's easier than ever now to create a live show that looks really professional. You can use, like, you don't have to do this to begin with. This should not be an excuse not to go live. But once you've got that confidence, you can start to upgrade your studio. You can get a better camera. You can get a nicer microphone. You can add some branding and overlays and raise the bar that way. And then there are other things that you can do. So recently I did a mega live stream. I went live for 3 or 4 hours. So there's certain things you can do. You can just do something a little bit differently than what other people are doing, and just have some fun with it. Because at the end of the day, people don't just want interesting information and value. They also want a bit of fun too. So in my podcast, for example, I do I sing a different theme song every single week. So for my guests, I had Janet Murray, who's a friend of mine, a couple of weeks ago, and she said she was into rap music, which personally I'm not into. I'm sorry if there are any rap fans here, but despite that, I decided to do a rap song for the intro. And so I have a bit of fun, and that makes it stand out, because I don't think there are many other podcasts that do that. So just embrace who you are and have some fun with it.
Oh my God, we're so totally going to do that in the end of this show, because this never happened on Friday Lives before. No one ever sang there, so we might want to go ahead and break that cycle and do things differently. There was a question that I had for you, and also there is a question in the chat that kind of resembles that. So what are the most important factors to create an engaging live stream? And I was curious to ask you about the pro tips for a killer live show that you typically share with people when you are doing your keynote speaking, or as well as when you consult people on how to work with their content. So specifically, not necessarily talking about about you as a host, about you as a person who delivers the content, but about the content itself. What helps to make a killer show? What drives that engagement?
Well, so I'll just very briefly talk about the high level thing, that there's five bits to creating a live show that you need to think about. And you need to kind of spend some time in all of these aspects. And I call these the 5 Ps. So the first P is the planning stage. So you need to obviously plan what you're going to be talking about. And I always think, keep it simple. 3 points that you're going to share, maybe 5 points is a good amount of information. But then also make sure you're bringing in your guest, and you're doing all that you're creating that document. That's the first thing. The second thing is the pre-promotion. Make sure that people know about it. Then we're on to the production, which I'll come back to, the actual production of the live show. Then there's the post-promotion, and then finally repurposing. So let's look at that production side of things, because I think that's really the most important thing of what we're talking about here. And so it's first of all, what kind of show is it going to be? And you need to work that out. So a friend of mine, Samantha Ashdown, who's a marketer, came up with a great acronym called BLAST. And I'll see if I can remember what they are, but these are different types of live shows that you can do. So the B for BLAST stands for behind the scenes. So you could do a live show which is showing, well, what what's actually happening behind the scenes of your business. So people love to know that kind of thing. The L is for local. So this is maybe highlighting a local business owner in your area. People are really nosy about, your local area. The A is a day in the life. So what's a typical day like for you? So sharing that kind of thing. S is one of my favorites, is sneak peek. So this is something that you're working on that's new. And this is kind of, you could also call this exclusive content. So, for example, at Restream, you might have a new feature and you're actually letting your live audience on this show know before everyone else. So they feel really special. And then finally, the T is, and I can't remember what it stands for. I'll come back to that. But this is pillar content. This is tips. That's what it is, tips. So this is how to, this is tips, that kind of thing. So first of all, work out what it is that you're going to, what type of show it is. And then you need to structure the show in a way that makes sense. So the first people that I will speak to will be my replay audience. Then I will welcome my live viewers. I will welcome them by name. I'll highlight them on the screen because people love that. People love to see themselves on the screen and to feel that you are getting to know them. Then get into the content. Make sure it's really valuable content. Say you're going to be sharing something really exciting at the end. Then go back to your audience, bring them in, engage with them. Then go on to the next part of the content. And I definitely think engaging with the audience all the way through that is great. And then finally, make sure that you're not waffling on too long. It's then time to end the show. So make sure you're ending with a nice call to action and let people know when you're going to be going live for the next week and end the show. And that's the production side. There's loads of other things we could talk about, but that's the main aspects of a live show, I think.
Yeah, that is very helpful. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. We'll definitely repurpose that part big time because I think that's gold for people. You're a brand ambassador for several live streaming companies and brands, including Restream, and you're a very desirable one. A lot of people want to work with you and want to see you on the list of evangelists. How does one become a brand ambassador that brands would want to work with?
That's a really interesting question. So I'm going to be honest. I didn't, going back to 10 years ago, I don't even know whether the concept of brand ambassadors really existed in the same way as it does now back then. But I didn't really set out to be one of those at the start. But I think what I've found is that I've become an expert in my field. So for example, with live video tools, I've gone into a lot of detail, a lot of research. And so, for example, I've written a blog post which compares the top live video tools in that. And I go into so much detail. In fact, it's about 14,000 words long, that article. And so I've become an expert in my field. And I've been asked to speak at conferences all around the world, basically as a result of all the content that I've put out there. So it's due to the quality, but it's also due to the consistency. And I struggled with this in the early days, but one of the things that I said to myself last year is that no matter what, I'm going to be publishing a podcast every single week for the show. And I think if you're going to become a brand ambassador, you need to know what you're talking about, but you also need to be consistent. And then the final thing is you need to have a good audience. So some brands out there get overly excited by the number of people, the number of followers, and I think that can be good. So if a brand ambassador has a lot of Twitter followers, for example, or a lot of people watching on the YouTube channel, that's great. But what's more important, I think, is are they engaged? Are they actually a passionate audience as well? And so I think audience is important. Consistency is important. And also the expertise is important. But the other thing is, how well are they known? And I think all those things will contribute to you being known. And there's a great book by a friend of mine, Mark Schaefer, which is called Known. And it's all about how to actually become more well-known. And I think, although I didn't set out necessarily to become more well-known at the start, all those things that I've been talking about have really helped to that. So if you want to become a brand ambassador, I think if you're consistent, you're building an audience, and you're really becoming sharing a lot of expertise, then that's the right way to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I guess we're wrapping up here. So the last thing I, of course, wanted to talk to you about is about your professional music training. So you still sing and teach, and I guess we could take it in two different directions. You could either share a little bit more about how that training helped you with your live streaming career and with confidence that we kind of touched a little bit on earlier. Or we can just let you sing, or we can do both. It's up to you. I think it would be nice to kind of give a little of an overview of how that singing training helps, and and then if I'm the one who is picking the song, I'll do that.
Well, there we go.
I'll think about it in the meantime.
I don't know about that. Well, so I mean, back in the day, so when I was at school, I was very much into science and technology, but I was also into music. I was my mother was an opera singer. And so when it came to the end of school, I had to make my decision. I decided to go and do music. So I went to university to do music. And then at the end of that, I then decided that singing was what it was for me. I loved singing and I had a good voice. So I ended up studying at the Royal Northern College of Music here in Manchester, learning to be a classical singer. So it was opera and classical music. And then I ended up singing all around the country as a soloist and teaching. And so I don't do so much professional singing anymore, just because actually, I mean, I'm busy as I've changed my focus and I'm helping entrepreneurs with confident live video. But I think it was but I've been teaching singing at the Royal Northern College of Music ever since. And so I still do that today. But it was back in 2016. So I was speaking at the Social Media Marketing World, which is one of the biggest social media conferences in the world. And they have, it's so bizarre, but they actually have a musical every year. And it's kind of like a parody. So I think this was The Wizard of Oz. And I was who was it? I might have been the lion or something. So I was like a really shy, introverted character who was really scared about networking. And we did it all to the music. And I suddenly realized, I was speaking on live video that year, and I realized, here I am at a social media conference. I've got my background as a singer. I'm talking about confident live video. There's a real, I had this epiphany moment, this real synergy between the two about helping people with getting in front of the camera and performing, and with the technology, and also my background as a teacher. And I suddenly had this realization that all those three things could come together. I could use all my experience as a performer with my experience as a teacher, with my experience in tech, and that would be a real killer combination. Of course, it took me a while to actually, everyone else seemed to believe in that. I didn't quite believe in myself, and it took me probably a couple of years to actually implement all of those things. But that was how it started for me. And definitely my singing backgrounds helped tremendously with all of that. So awesome. That's my history.
That is awesome. Well, if you're not comfortable singing, you don't have to.
Well, I can't really think of anything to sing. I'm trying to think. I mean, I could make up a song about Restream, but I'd need to have some lyrics. I mean, I could sing a few notes. Maybe something like, so this is the Friday live show, isn't it? From Restream.
It is.
So,
yeah, absolutely. I would love a Restream song.
It's the Friday live show from Restream. There we go. That'll do.
Awesome. Bravo. No, that was great. Well, thank you so much, Ian. That was super fun. It was great having you. Thanks for all those great insights, so many good tips, and such a great topic about how to be confident on camera and on live stream and on video. Because today, let's face it, video is a huge part of everyone's life because of how the world is these days. So I'm sure people learned so many things from you. And like I mentioned earlier, if you would like to learn even more, and if you want to talk to Ian, and if you would like to discover his podcast, his courses, and also his consulting services, the website is iag.me, and it's displayed right now, right here. No, here. And you're definitely welcome to check it out. And of course, I will tag Ian on all our social media in the comments to this video, so you could connect with him as well. I'm sure, Ian, you welcome those connections.
That'd be awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time. I am going to hide you from the screen and just do my little wrap up here. And yeah, thank you. It was so great to have you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that was great. I am going to just real quick show you one way how you could use Restream Studio if you are interested in starting your own live show with guests, just like we talked about with Ian, how this is a great opportunity to you to get started. If you're not super confident, you can bring in experts or co-hosts and make it a lot easier to start. Restream Studio is how we power these shows. This is how I run Friday Lives. And right here, you can see the link. You can check us out at restream.io/studio and see for yourself, explore it, try it out. There's a free plan. You don't even have to pay if you're going to just your personal pages. And there are also advanced plans with advanced features if you want to move further. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming in today, for joining our live stream, for asking great questions and leaving great comments. Really appreciate it. We will definitely be back next Friday. And you all have a wonderful weekend. Bye.